Coming at you from Scratch Wolf Studio. It's that time again to rage across the internet. Your very favorite Werewolf the Apocalypse podcast. As always, I'm your host, Porter. To my left, the master of disguise, Mr. Daniel Tyson.
Hey, everybody.
To my right, the master of these fries, Mr. Tommy Dixon.
French fries.
Put extra salt on those next time. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Extra
I
crispy,
don't know.
too. I like mine crispy.
No,
He's one of them double fry guys.
this guy's a creep. How we doing, gentlemen?
Doing great.
It's podcast day. It's warm outside. It'll snow tomorrow.
That's right.
Probably, yeah. That's what happens in Michigan.
The Wyld has taken over. It's crazy.
Yes.
Speaking of the Wyld, however,
Oh. All right.
we have a friend with us today, coming from the wildlands in the south.
Almost the Wild West, even?
Hey, don't step on my shit, sir. It's a good friend of the show. He's one of our back. He's a storyteller in our Discord. Our good friend CJ. Welcome to the show, CJ.
Howdy. How y'all doing today?
Doing great.
He did it up. I'm just imagining a cowboy hat now.
Well, he's from Texas. Of course he has a cowboy hat. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Get the boots to match.
Right?
Don't have the boots. The hat's in the other room, though.
At
Is
least
that even legal down there?
to not have the boots?
Well, to not have the hat on.
He's not outside the house.
When you're indoor, when you're inside, you're not supposed to have the hat on, man. Come on.
That's
Okay.
common courtesy.
My mistake.
Is it because the top of the hat will hit the, like,
Deer antlers.
or the,
Why does the hat have antlers?
It's a deer antlers on the wall.
You didn't say on the wall.
Well, on the wall, deer antlers.
Well, I think
That's
you
where you
implied-
hang the hat.
I'm just saying.
That's
is
where
it
you
gonna-
hang the hat. There you go.
There you go.
Yep, see,
I just thought maybe the top of the hat was going to hit the frame of the door.
that's a big hat.
Exactly.
Well, I think that was the point.
Thank you.
Where are we going with this?
This is not the worst opening we've had.
No, it really
it's
isn't.
fine. And it's still good.
I want to point back to our Amazon episode where I went with the raisin segue that had nothing to do with anything. I was probably proud of that one.
That was fantastic. Speaking of shriveled raisins,
Like, what the? All right.
I turned that around. Speaking of shit shows.
So,
Might want
yes.
to keep that one in the chamber.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe. Might have to load that up again.
chamber, loaded up. Texas, the West.
Rutabaga, Slipjack,
Danny's
Ford
fired.
Escort.
Stop sign. Turtles.
Albuquerque. Danny's fired.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So CJ, wanna?
You can't even do it.
I can't even, man. What the fuck's happening? All right.
It's all my fault.
Danny's throwing the mojo off.
No, so CJ, you do run a game in our Discord.
Yep, I do. And it is specifically a Wild West game that's started up fairly recently.
Which, interestingly enough, is why we asked you on the show.
Uh-huh.
That's what we're talking today.
The Wild West. Oh, I'm still fired. Sorry. All right.
But he
Still
just mute
fired.
his mic.
Well, I'm a little embarrassed. That felt like a reference to the Will Smith movie,
Yeah, he was going for it.
and so now I feel like someone's gonna come slap you.
Wow.
Oh, too soon.
Like I'm not gonna. I'm not saying I'm gonna, but
No.
I feel like you've just invited that to happen.
I was just thinking in my head Yosemite Sam.
That was a terrible Yosemite Sam
I wasn't
impression.
thinking the voice. That's just who I was thinking of when I said it. Because he said it before. I wasn't talking about the movie. Fuck that.
As an expert on everything south of like Detroit, CJ, does that resemble Yosemite Sam in any way, shape, or form?
Nah, maybe a 1 out of 10 on the resemblance there.
1 out of 10.
I wouldn't even give it a 1.
Danny one time.
Danny one time.
Probably would have been better off going with the Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh, that would have been good.
I love me some Looney Tunes.
That just brings me back to our
The
Heart of the
Witcher?
Forest playthrough.
Oh, okay. With Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, where I did the voice of Colonel.
Those were funny.
Well, I say.
If you haven't heard those guys, go back and listen to those. They are funny.
Yeah, they're on our YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
which is in the show notes. You know what else is in the show notes for real this time? Because they weren't, we found out.
I screwed up a few times.
Is the link to our Ko-Fi, which is a great way for you to support us, which we would be very thankful for. We've got our various tiers there, of which includes our post-mortem series. What is that? The gold tier.
Mm-hmm.
CJ, you're a gold tier member, aren't you?
Yeah, I get the postmortems and the NPC of the month club, so I think that's
It's Moon Silver.
That is a Moon Silver tier, yeah.
Both of which I can highly recommend.
Speaking of the NPC of the month, CJ, doesn't he use those?
I've used a good few of them to bring in some of the characters that I've loved hearing y'all talk about on the podcast and bringing them into the Wild West.
Look at that.
See, right from that is expert testimony right there.
Straight from the horse's mouth?
I was trying yeah. I started and I tried to dodge that one.
I was not allowing that.
I wanted to say it, but I knew I'd just been fired again.
He can fire me next. Good luck figuring out the soundboard.
That's fine. But no, that's obviously the link there is both in the show notes and on our website, which is rageacrosstheinternet.com.
.com.
.com.
Nice. Yes, I love that. I love when we get the 4 in there.
Always enjoy when the guests join in.
Right? So, hey, moving on to the real thing.
All right.
How about we start a show here?
The Wild Wild West.
Right?
So I get yelled at saying...
Because I didn't try to say it funny.
You were like, you kind of sang it.
You did.
He was like, Wild Wild West. And we're like, dude, no, you can't be.
No, fuck
You can't be doing that.
No, you're right.
But it's W-Y-L-D. W-I-L-D. Wild Wild West.
All right.
Quality content here, folks.
Fine.
So,
To the Wild West.
well, this is the thing. The World of Darkness, not all of the games, obviously. I don't think there's a spooky ghost version. I know there's not a hunter version. But, Vampire had Dark Ages.
Right.
And we kind of got Werewolf Dark Ages.
Did we?
Yes, we kind of did.
Why kinda?
Why would...
Let the man explain.
Thank you. We got a source book for it. There was another book, but it wasn't. The point is we didn't get a full line for Dark Ages, where Vampire, they had their thing. But what we got was Wild West, which did not sit super well with me at first. Like back in the day when, I wasn't in the West, I'm like, Westerns, come on, I want to be the Dark Ages. And I think it's funny is over the years, I've kind of flipped on that. I've been kind of intrigued about the Wild West as a setting. And I've always, in the back of my head, I've wanted to run at least a little bit. I mean, we've talked about this before. We did our 8-bit storytelling episode. Tom, you remember that when I kind of shoehorned you into a Wild West scenario for the sake of that episode.
I liked it.
That's actually what inspired me to start reading up on the Wild West for Werewolf.
See, that's badass.
That is awesome.
The funny enough is I was actually about to ask you why you chose to run Wild West. So
Come to find out that episode actually did some good.
Did you actually use our Mario thing?
I did at first,
Okay.
and then the story just sort of started developing on its own, and it's now
See, that's
a
great.
pack that is getting too much shit thrown at them all at once for them to really deal with it. But they're trying.
That's still great, though. That
That's
the
all you can
Mario
ask for.
setting
see,
did do some kind of inspiration.
I wasn't talking shit.
You can pull Inspirato from anywhere.
Yeah, you can break it down that simple. That's super cool. I didn't know that. That's great.
It's awesome to hear.
So, okay, we got you to start looking into the Wild West. What kept you there?
Well, one of the things that really got me into it and got me wanting to write the story for it and actually start running it was I was bringing in a bunch of my friends who were all Dracula players originally because I needed people to play werewolf with. So I just started pulling some of them in. None of them knew anything about werewolf. And I thought if you put it in the Wild West, yes, the veil's still a thing that needs to be considered, but you have a lot more freedom just to do the cool werewolf shit on the daily in the Wild West. Yes, maybe if the wrong people see you, you might get a whole posse of lawmen after you coming to hunt down the monsters that are living in the woods. But otherwise, you can usually deal with whatever happens if somebody sees you if the delirium doesn't take care of it. So there's a little extra freedom and just a little extra room to explore since you are in the frontier.
I think that's a great point because unlike a modern day game or even a game in the 90s like we do, you're not getting caught on camera.
Nope.
Like the dude at the saloon sees you in Krynos and it's for some reason that small percentage that's immune to the delirium
who's going to believe him? And who the hell's he going to tell?
Right. Who gives a shit?
And he's at the saloon, so he's probably already half in the can.
Yeah. Like it doesn't matter.
Because, I mean, alcohol back then was like gasoline, so.
Yeah, pretty damn close to jet fuel.
Yeah. It's got 3 X's on it.
Well, tarnation.
Oh, boo. If I would have said it, you would have just said you're fired again.
Exactly.
So you get to say it. No, fuck that. Tarnation.
It's Wild West lingo, sir.
It's just
I reckon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes it so much better.
It does. CJ?
Yeah, I reckon you're onto something with all that.
Boom, roasted.
Nice.
That's right.
He's working even closer to that mute button.
That's right. I got backup from an authority on the South. Take that.
Why am I even here?
That is a good question.
There's a third chair that needed to be filled?
You want to make the drive?
Nah, not yet.
Yeah, I must say, it's still a little cold up here for you, probably.
Oh, no, I would love the cold. It beat, watching the asphalt melt on the road in the middle of winter.
I feel like that's probably a real concern down there.
It can be.
Also, the toll roads. I've actually spent some time in Texas.
Toll roads suck.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
They're a little...
Toll roads, anything
They're a
south
little
of
rough.
us suck.
But anyway, back to the Wild West.
Where, they ain't got
Where
no
no
roads
road.
or no tolls. So,
Yeah, toll roads.
They
Not a
pay a
problem.
toll to get on that railroad.
except the troll toll.
Railroad.
I mean, that's
toll.
if you can't jump on the train.
That's true. You can just hijack a train.
Which, right now, that's immediately an appeal to me.
Oh, absolutely. I just think of one of our stories.
Right. I did that in a modern day game.
Yeah.
So, which was set in Texas. How about that?
Yeah. I forgot about that part.
Hey-oh.
That was another thing that drew me to it, was those, iconic scenes from Western, whether it be books or shows or games. You can pull those off without any problem in the Wild West. You can go full shootout at the OK Corral. You can go hop a train and rob it blind, hit stagecoaches, or go full Lone Ranger and set yourself up as the law in the area. And start
the
dealing
law
with
is a
that
little
shit.
loose, isn't it, though? Because I know law back then was very loose.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and that's the beauty part, too. I mean, you could play the straight historian if that's kind of your thing. Or if it's not, and I think we've had this discussion around here. We've talked about other settings for werewolf. Our understanding of the past that, we were just vaguely aware that the Flintstones wasn't a documentary.
Vaguely.
That's not a documentary.
See, if your grasp of history is that loose, you could still do Wild West in a more, cinematic. You can look at...
You can go full spaghetti Western if you want.
Exactly. Now, for me, if I'm going to do it, I want to go more Hollywood Western.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a great example, because, at this point, you're looking at movies, is Wyatt Earp versus Tombstone.
Man, I was hoping you were going to bring in Back to the Future.
I'll be honest, that theme has been running through my head the whole time. Yeah, the whole time.
Just making sure.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's a great example because you got, these were both movies that came out around the same time. They're different angles of the story of, and one, you got Costner's, Wyatt Earp, and it's a very dry, history-ish.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a to the point. This is what happened, and this is done.
And I'm not making a comment on either because I think they're both good movies in their own way. But you go to Tombstone. Tombstone is more of a Hollywood Western.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're going with it.
Yeah, more. It's less worried about the accuracy and more worried about being exciting and telling a fun story. And Val Kilmer is awesome in it, and I'll never get to say that again because it's Val Kilmer. And I think you look at stuff like that or like Young Guns, which we've recently discovered is a secret werewolf movie.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I know I wanted to watch it for this episode because again, it's that Hollywood cinematic version of Wild West here.
Right.
I just didn't get around to watching it, but it's a secret werewolf, huh?
And right there, Young Guns is a great bit of inspirato for a game. Have your pack being trained by their mentor, whether it be a Silver Fang, like Young Guns most likely would be. Mentor runs into an accident, and now it's a revenge quest for the pack.
I like that.
Oh.
Seriously, secret werewolf movie.
Oh, man. I love when we be able to pull those out like that.
But let's dive in a bit more to the setting of Wild West because really we're going to sit here and talk about it because we have a show.
Yeah.
We have to look at the audience here, like, why would we be interested in this? What's different? What's special? Why do we care? And I mean, that's kind of, I almost am walking into this episode trying to sell my younger self on Wild West.
Good luck.
And why it's viable and interesting.
Good luck.
Okay. I mean,
right?
yeah,
Your younger self was very stubborn.
You didn't even know me then. You got no idea.
I'm just calling it out.
But he's not
You're
wrong.
You're not wrong. No idea. But I mean, there is, obviously we're running back technology. Duh. There's actually some interesting shit going on. Again, you look at Dark Ages, I could go over there, pull that Dark Ages source book, and it talks about the 10 tribes.
10.
And I was furious. Yeah.
Huh.
Well, none of the pure ones.
Oh.
And despite the fact everyone was alive, you couldn't play as everyone. It was crazy. You have access to all the tribes you know currently. I mean, obviously the Glasswalkers are the Iron Riders, which is his superior name.
I will agree.
Yeah, that is a way better name.
Sounds super cool.
It's
Already.
I mean, dawning of the Iron Age. What do you expect?
Well, not only that, but
Iron Riders. Fuck yeah, look out for them.
But it's also appropriate to that time period.
Since they are going with the trains. Also, just imagine that image of that Iron Rider in Glabro Krynos just standing there using a Gatling gun as probably like a hand cannon almost.
Yes.
Because you could in that form.
Yes, please.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty fucking rad. I was nowhere near that imagery, but you just, okay.
Carrying around a cannon. Not even a Gatling gun, just a cannon.
But using his horse as a club in Krynos.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Oh shit, they killed my horse. That's all right, I got another weapon now.
That's just what was in my heart. I need a weapon. I'm going to grab the horse by his back legs, just swing him like a club.
90s, you're throwing cars, and back in the Wild West, you're throwing horses.
Dual wield them.
Dual wielding horses?
Throwing train cars. Oh, boy.
That was not where I was going to go, but fuck it. That's where we ended up. I mean, there's something about the freedom, like you mentioned, CJ, of the idea that the law isn't quite what we know today. That
the law is what the lawmakers wanted it to be.
Right. There's a larger freedom there, away from the constraints of modern society's bullshit. Yeah, obviously, we go back to the tribes. You have all the tribes, the Glasswalkers, the Iron Riders. It's something that kind of bums me out, I will say, because obviously the White Howlers have long since fallen. Mm-hmm. Long gone. No, you can't be a White Howler in the Wild West. You are still many generations away from that fall. It's like a decimal point in your way, plus 500 years. No. The Croton are dead.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They are gone as well.
You could come across the ruins of their cairns and stuff, or find, kinfolk who might remember that time or remember the stories from that.
Yeah, they're gone, but
they're long gone.
I wouldn't go long gone. It wasn't that far away.
Not compared to the Howlers, but
right.
Yeah.
You're not secretly the last remaining crew. That's not it either. However, and this is the thing that kind of sticks in my craw with the setting, but you can fix nowadays. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The Bunyip are still alive.
It just depends on the time period you want to set the game.
I think the last of their kinfolk died in the 80s.
Really?
I think so. I mean, I believe that was in captivity earlier. Maybe it was the 20s. Either way.
Even if it's the 20s, it's still
exactly.
Wild West.
Either way,
fits.
yeah, the Bunyip are still in play, even though they're not in the Wild West books. Now, I think
they actually are in one of them.
Are they?
As a potentially playable tribe.
I stand
corrected. The first edition Wild West companion. And it does mention, because of the War of Tears or War of Shame, it flips back and forth in that book. It does mention that you need a good reason, because the Bunyip aren't known for leaving their homeland, but it does provide two example characters. One being somebody who was brought over thanks to the slave trade.
I can see that.
And one person who saw the War of Shame going on and decided to get the fuck out of Dodge.
The smart guy.
Get that. And I mean, look, that's not all encompassing. You could just be the guy who wants to see the world out there. That's not a fucking novel concept.
It's true.
But I appreciate that, with the Werewolf 20 stuff that's out there. After all the years have passed, we have a greater idea of the Bunyip's toolkit, which makes it a lot easier to integrate into a Wild West game if you're so inclined. And I think for some people, the fact that you could feasibly play a Bunyip could be reason enough.
I could see it, and I can think of 2 people off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, I got 2 or 3. Yeah. But still, I think that's a good thing. It's an appropriate setting for him. I think that's great. But the world is different. I mean, obviously, and it's not just because of the technological downgrade. There's some meta plot going on in the Wild West.
Big one being the storm meters out and about.
There we go.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I loved that part of it, though. They're explaining the who the storm eater is, why he is the way he is, and just the destruction that it's causing. And it almost like it's the storm eater itself is what's creating the rest of the setting of the Wild West.
Well, it has a lot to do with it. And I mean, we talk about Wild West, and definitely you can put a Y in that wild, because this is a time when the Wild had a lot more influence and the Weaver had a lot less influence compared to what we're used to today.
Yeah, it's almost like the Weaver's starting that growth.
Well, it definitely is. What with the railroad coming up,
The Industrial Revolution going on.
Big time. Yep, that's how I was hoping you would say.
You know, but let's move back to that storm eater for a second. I mean, the thing about the storm eater is we've referenced him a couple times in past episodes because it's a relevant spirit. It's not something that died in the Wild West.
No.
It's modern day games. The storm eater is still sealed away somewhere, potentially ready to break out and refuck the planet.
Just waiting.
Because that's what it was doing.
It absolutely
in
was.
the 1800s, that's what it was doing. It was fucking everything up.
Well, even before that, and I went back to the original the Wild West core book, and I feel like there was probably in the W20 conversion thing some retcons there, because you're going to hear it. According to the original Wild West core book, the Storm Eater was a worm spirit who was feeding on wild energies. Now that's still true,
right?
But it was bound and freed, and according to Wild West, and I got a quote here, because this is where we start to differ. In the 1830s, a great tremor rocks the umbra surrounding the Pure Lands as the European takeover of one too many Uktena and Wendigo cairns weakens the seals that secure the Great Bane's prison.
Yeah.
Now, we have discussed a version of this where the death of the last Kamatots did this.
Right.
We have discussed a version where the slaughter of certain groups of Uktena weakened the Bane, the seals. There are different versions.
Yes.
So this was the one that came out of the original Wild West core book.
Okay. Yeah, because what we were reading, it's the expansion piece, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Wild West expansion, it doesn't necessarily say what did it. Just it was happening around the time.
Well,
European expansion was happening.
Well, it almost said it. It was
Almost.
very much implied. It was all the European Garu taking over the Uktena and the Wendigo cairns, and like one too many cairns fell, and they don't say which cairn, like specifically that would fall that would cause it, but like, it would
matter.
Eventually, at each one of them falling, it would just weaken the seal that was holding the Storm Eater, and that's what would break out of its prison.
But again, we go back to our
Right.
Bats, Bacon, and Burger episode.
3 Bs.
That's right. And maybe it's contradicted there. I mean, it's something because there's no hard answer and you get to decide. But I thought it was important to get exactly what it said in the original, just for shits and grins.
No, understandable.
But I think the worthier part here is that when it escaped its prison, it ended up attracting a mighty Weaver spirit.
Yeah.
And then the two, they did the dance, they kind of combined, they fused up, and that's what made the Storm Eater. According to the original Wild West book.
Yeah. I mean, again.
So it's like it was already a bad thing, but it wasn't the Storm Eater. It got sealed, breaks out, does, hooks up with the Weaver spirit, and now it's the current problem.
Yeah, it
gets a power boost,
right?
That's just what it needed.
It really was, honestly.
Well, that's the thing is it's already before it was because obviously it's been sealed away, and whatever they decide that happens, what breaks out of its prison, whether it's the cairns falling, it's the Kamatots, whatever they decide, it was already such a powerful bane to begin with. It couldn't be killed. It could only be sealed away.
Right.
So once
it's extra.
So once it breaks from that prison, a Weaver spirit comes to try and bind it again. They fight. It was, what did it say? Something about like a full day and a full night before the battle of those two finally ended. The Storm Eater, quote unquote, came out on top, but it didn't devour it like it's been doing to the other spirits. It tried to. And when it tried to, that's when it infused. And now it's even stronger, and it goes more again after more wild spirits. And it doesn't always devour the wild. Sometimes it just corrupts them and leaves them. And again, forming the rest of the Wild West.
It's important to note, I mean, obviously the Storm Eater is a massive threat, canonically, and that gets resolved eventually, which is cool because, your players can have as much of a role in that as you see fit. That's fine. But it's nice as a background piece, is something that's, I think most of the meta plot, it works best this way. When you're not a driving factor, but it's something that's spinning the wheels in the background, which can inform how other characters, NPCs, the world, how the world turns around your players. But something you got to factor here too is we have what's known as the Storm Umbra, which is a notable difference. The Penumbra, it's host unnaturally frequent storms, and it's like these wild energies. They can be kicked up by conflict, magnified by wild energy, and then the Storm Eater and its minions, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
it's minions.
Yeah. They're artifact, it has its people.
Why wouldn't it?
Right. And they're obviously attracted to this. But Tom, you got something on this, yeah?
Well, we all know how bad umbral storms get, even in current day.
Yes, they can be nasty.
Yeah, these ones, the ones that are happening in Wild West, they can still shatter moon bridges, they can tear apart domains, they can even tear holes into the local gauntlet to create what they call the broken lands.
Oh, that sounds cool already.
Very cool and very messed up.
Well, the broken lands are sweet.
They are fun.
They're a very big twist. Broken lands, okay, so they are sections of territory where the raging umbral storms have temporarily worn down the gauntlet to 1. So this makes it so the periphery is so strong in these places that it seems as if the landscape itself has been altered. Animals and wilderness sometimes don't behave quite right.
Well, and I think something that's crazy about the broken lands is that they can move.
Yes.
It's not a static spot like a hellhole. Like the umbral winds can just blow, quote, the broken lands somewhere the fuck else.
And with some of the crazy stuff the broken lands can do, imagine if, say, one happened to blow right over your set.
Oh shit!
That could come from that.
Now, CJ, have you used? How have you used the broken lands in your stuff?
The biggest example so far of what's gone on with the broken lands. Can't go into too much details because I know some of my players are definitely going to be listening to this episode.
Yeah, you guys better be.
But the first one that they actually experienced was a umbral storm had come and blown through their sets. And in the mountains nearby, it wore down the gauntlet enough that something that had been trapped in it for a while was able to get enough movement to start tearing into the gauntlet itself to try and get out. The pack goes up to the mountain, finds this little broken land, and there's a cave here that's not supposed to be here, with cave paintings and everything on the walls.
That's cool.
Holy shit.
And they decide to, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, they decide to pull something from the gauntlet that was a changing breed from prehistory.
Ooh.
Specifically a stone eater.
Oh.
That's
nicely
awesome.
done.
That's awesome.
And that's one of the things with the broken lands that I especially like the idea of is it's giving you a toolbox of like, hey, here's a few random examples. Have fun. There's almost
super
no
badass.
limit. Like, you could have a town be in the middle of one of the broken lands at the moment. One of your players goes to Krynos. Everybody goes about their day as normal. Delirium's not affecting them. They see the werewolf, and it's like, oh, neat.
Yeah.
And aren't even phased.
That is what's neat about it. Like, yeah, broken lands, they can actually be settled. You don't seem to, like, settlers or natives, they don't seem to know that something's out of the ordinary. Like, in a small town, a piano player plays tunes nobody's ever heard of in the West. But nobody's the wiser. They just think it's natural. Yeah, werewolf shifts, nobody reacts as though affected by the delirium. They don't even notice it at all. It's impossible to predict just how the spirit has altered the rules of the flesh.
You know, that reminds me of something. It reminds me of BioShock Infinite.
Okay.
Through the course of that game,
there's a lot of reality warping in that game.
Yes. And I'm specifically bringing up the music.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, where there will be covers of songs that are famous to us in that world, in the musical stylings of the time of that world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bringing this up because it's kind of an easy dot connect and now a cautionary tale. Because here's the thing. It seems like a good idea to do that. That sounds like, oh man, this is really cool, right? Except
the repercussions of it.
Well, what repercussions? Think about this. I mean, I know what you're saying because that puts the thought of time travel. But to hear like an old timey piano version of "Smells Like Teen Spirit," for example, if you introduce that into your game, you have broken immersion because the players won't understand any significance to that. I mean, the characters won't, right? That's just a new song that they haven't heard before. The players will go, "Oh, that smells like Teen Spirit," because Nirvana.
And you broke immersion.
Right there.
There is that disconnect.
Do not do that.
All right, I see why. Yeah.
It will have 0% impact on your characters.
And 100% impact on the players.
It's cool, but it's a very big double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm. That's not how you do that if you're going to do something timey-wimey like that.
Timey-wimey.
That's a Doctor Who thing. I didn't make that up.
Never saw it.
No, I know, but that's why I defended myself here.
I can confirm it.
At that point, if you want to do something like that, I would recommend maybe a more advanced firearm than would be normal in the era.
Okay.
Or something like that, where they would know what the hell is that. They would know that this doesn't belong, that this is strange.
Gotcha.
Because hearing a song you've never heard before isn't strange.
It's fair.
But knowing that some kind of firearm, that's not that timepiece. That's not supposed to come out for a few hundred years kind of thing.
And I mean, they wouldn't know that in those words, but they'd know what kind of magic is this.
Right.
I'm throwing crappy lead balls and this thing. Look at a today bullet.
That is another fun thing with the setting. Depending on when you want to place it, your technology, whenever it comes to firearms, can be quite varied. Since you can go all the way up to 1911.
Wow.
Yeah, there's actually a chart in there depending on which time, quote unquote, time era you want to put it in. It's the different firearms or even rifles in there.
It's when technology was really advancing in firearms, though. We went from muskets to full-on revolvers.
Yeah. That's like I said,
Part
there's
of the Industrial Revolution.
Which is exciting. And I have to ask, and I'm sure the answer is yes. The answer has to be yes. If it's not, we're undoing this episode. And I'm going to spend the rest of the hour naysaying this fucking game if the answer is no.
Well, you won't naysay the next part I'm going to bring up.
Fair enough. But CJ, before CJ.
Okay.
Are there rules on gunfighting specifically?
There are rules on gunfighting.
See, like it has to be a yes.
Yep, no, that's in there.
You can't do a Wild West game without like rules for the high noon fucking gun duel.
Well, not exactly that specifically, but everybody knows those rules. But there are rules for pulling off the trick shots that you're used to seeing in those. Like, hey, you got somebody running, specifically going just to put that bullet right through the back of the knees. They fall flat. Or shooting the pistol out of their hands.
Okay.
And there's an entire gift for it.
Yeah,
for the
trick shot.
Well, trick shot. Yeah, that's a modern day gift.
Well, not only is there a gift for it, there's a whole section on what to do and it's got its own blurb.
Again, like it had to be / there had better have been.
It's the Wild West. I mean,
right?
Come on.
Like, how dare you?
Rules on the high noon battle. Come on.
Right?
Meet me out here in the middle of the
street. But now
street.
think about that. You could do that as a legitimate challenge in the nation at this point, especially if you got Iron Riders nearby.
That's actually true.
Right?
Challenge you to a duel.
That reminds me, you had come up with a like a Philodox Iron Rider. Remember?
No.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm saying no, I don't remember. Fill me in.
I'm trying to remember. He had a weapon that he called the Judge. And he takes 3 bullets out of the revolver. And it's, we'll let Gaia decide and your fate. And he spins the chamber. Remember that now?
No, but I love it.
Yeah.
I do too.
You came up with it, so
great.
I'm just remembering.
Well, I'm a fucking genius. Where was this?
And those characters are fucking right at home in the Wild West.
I just remember that his fetish weapon was the Judge.
Tell me more about how great my ideas are. I want to know about this.
That's all I remember, and it's all necessary to talk about right now.
Was it on the air?
No, it was in Discord.
Oh. Should have
It
been
isn't.
on the air.
It's on there now.
It's going to be on the air now.
Right? Well, someone remembers. Tell me about that, because I don't recall this even in the slightest.
I don't remember it either.
I'm hearing
Discord.
this for the first time.
Anyway.
Sticking with the Broken Lands, you have the Stormborn.
Yes, you do.
Stormborn.
The ones that are born in the Broken Lands.
Yeah, I was going to hold off on this, but if we're talking Stormborn, we can talk Stormborn.
I mean, it segues perfectly. Why not?
Okay.
Like,
where else are you going to fit it in?
Garu born
Later.
in the Badlands?
No. No, sir.
Broken Lands, not Badlands.
Sorry.
It's a weird combination of spirits that create something essentially new, but you also have their own version of like the Fomor that also exist in the Broken Lands that I think are also called the Stormborn.
That's what I'm saying. You think the Broken Lands are weird. Wait until it creates something.
Right. Yeah. The Stormborn, it's the weirdness of the savage or the West, the Savage West.
The Savage West.
Yes.
That's what it's called in the original books.
It is.
But I think Wild West works better.
I agree. My notes threw me off. But yeah, the Stormborn, they're like half spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And like half not. They're children of the Storm Umbra. Like they don't really belong in the material world. They don't really belong in the Umbra. And on some instinctual level, they're like well aware of that, which makes them resentful and violent by nature.
I can see that.
They're like Fomori, which are not generally called Fomori, by the way, in the Wild West. But that's not
They're
for
mockeries.
Yes, mockeries.
Yeah, they're heavily mistaken as mockeries too. When they're kind of mockeries, but they're
the
also
Stormborn. Yeah, they're like it,
but not. And all
Right.
Garu pretty much mistake them as a mockery.
well, because they're a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was going to say that's just because they're new and they don't know anything about it yet.
which is funny because they no longer exist allegedly in the modern days. They went away kind of with the Storm Eater, again allegedly. So that's a fun thing you can use in a modern day game, especially if you're playing with the notion that the Storm Eater is starting to come back alive.
Oof.
Which is suggested in A World of Rage or Rage Across the World, because I confuse those books constantly. How dare you name those things so close?
I don't know what you're
Someone with the
talking about.
Margrave on the front. It's the 3rd edition book.
It's that one.
Not going to point fingers at anybody that names things close.
I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's more than one Mike in the world. It's not so weird that two people would have similar sounding first names.
Okay.
Mute your mic. You're unpro. You put a quarter in the don't jar.
These guys can't tell their own history. They don't know it. Like
That's
they
'cause they
don't
were
know
just
their
born.
origins.
Well, and they have they do all share a set of rules. For example, all Stormborn are immune to delirium. With rare exception, they don't smell of worm taint. They have gnosis and can use it to step sideways, but they don't need a reflective surface. They have the equivalent of 5 dots of the spirit heritage background, because obviously, like, half spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, they also have they each have like a band.
Are you in a band?
No, not a band, a band, like a totem band.
Oh, a band.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of them have to carry straws.
Nice.
Thank you. But yeah, it's that set of rules that they have to, and it differs between,
Mm-hmm.
but if like they can choose not to follow that band, but then they get like a sickness,
like a dangerous don't.
Kind of like they lose 2 to their dice pool.
Oh wow!
And their physical attributes are halved.
That sucks.
Yeah, I mean for them.
For them, yes.
And that's just not for following the band,
right?
Oh, what is the band that they have to follow?
Like, thanks for listening to the podcast. It's different for everybody.
Okay.
He was half paying attention.
I know he was. You know what he was? He was playing on his phone.
No, it wasn't.
Blame the Weaver.
It's a fucking My Little Pony game he got into.
What the fuck?
What's it called? Dance Magic?
Yeah, just that. That's exactly what it is.
Confirmed.
I do have one of the bands for one of the storyboards if you want to go through it.
I would love to.
I thought you were going
to pile onto that pony thing, but yeah, go on.
Nah. One of them is the Devil Coyotes, which they look just like regular coyotes for the most part, except their eyes glow weird, their teeth are black, and they constantly have this like foam coming out the mouth.
Fucking sweet.
And their main band is it usually has something to do with hedonistic delight. They fall asleep if they taste honey. They flee the sight of a normal coyote in heat, and they turn on one another if they hear a young girl sing.
You know what else is cool about them though? Because I took notes on some of these on these Stormborn because these are kind of neat. The Devil Coyotes can shapeshift into whatever the fuck they want.
Oh.
No, so I don't mean like they go to Krynos. I mean like they can turn into a pack of cigarettes.
So they're like Transformers?
I'd say more like the T-1000, actually.
Okay. No, I see. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh shit, someone coming. Transform into a rock so no one thinks any different.
Yeah, they can take the form of any physical object or animal, even turn into a dust devil. They can disguise
easy way to escape.
Yeah, is a human or a small horse. It's just whatever. I do like the pack of cigarettes idea, though.
Imagine if somebody tried to smoke that.
And then boom, turns into fucking purple-eyed, black, drooly fucking coyote monster that just eats your face.
Sweet.
And they're also known to have a human level of intelligence.
Oh, shit.
Not in flavor country anymore, gentlemen.
That's a big deal. That's should have led with that, man. A human level of intelligence.
Yeah, it's better to leave that to the end because it's more horrifying.
That's scary.
Yeah.
They're your best spies.
These things are
dangerous.
Best spies.
A pack, even a single one of these things could be really bad news.
And I mean, like, yeah, that ability to shapeshift. I mean, think about what that means in terms of like laying traps or evading capture.
This is your best spy right here. This is Predator on crack for the times.
You know, imagine you actually managed to grab one of these things, hold it down, and all of a sudden it just turns into a dust devil.
You're not holding on to that anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, not much longer.
Or like a cactus.
Ooh.
You're like, oh, fuck. And then it shifts back and runs away.
Just shifts into a train.
Or shifts into you.
Ooh. Way to mess with another pack.
Right?
Mess with that person's whole pack. Oh, which one's the real one?
Will a Gaia decide?
I just see a standoff now with everybody with their hands near their hips ready to pull their guns.
It's just constantly. Mm-hmm. And I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. And this is just one of them. They get...
Yeah, a whole pack?
You've got a huge, wide range of the Stormborn. And the Devil Coyotes are admittedly one of my favorites because they're just... They seem so easy just to slip into an enemy encounter.
Well, it's another one I like, and this is less, I would say less threatening, useful, or maybe creepy, is the waking sleepwalkers. The waking sleepwalkers, excuse me.
Waking sleepwalkers.
Yes.
Don't wake them.
Well, they're
Don't
waking up.
Them.
Don't walk
them. They look like ordinary people. All right. But they wander constantly day and night, and they're never completely aware of their surroundings. That they can't really tell what's real and what's not, and they react to everything as if they were part of like a dream or a nightmare. The thing is, They're born obviously because like Stormborn, flesh and spirit. They're born of the flesh and the dream stuff of epiphylings. So they're always in a lucid dreaming state.
Ooh.
And being tied to those spirits of the dream, like their senses are permanently attuned to the periphery. So like they can pick out the slightest change in their surroundings, but they can't always tell if it's real or not.
So to them, they're always dreaming. And
they're always awake.
Everything's either a nightmare or just a pleasant dream.
Now,
all just depends on what happens.
Right? Now, generally, they're kind of aware that they're dreaming, which makes their capacity for lucid dreaming like extra dangerous because they can alter the perceptions of others, twisting that shit around. And if they're confronted or agitated or forced to defend themselves, translucent tendrils uncoil from their spine and they lash out at enemies.
Whoa.
It's like they turn into Doc Ock.
This is getting nuts.
I almost wonder if they're even aware of that when that happens. It's all a dream.
Or it's not. Again, they're aware they're dreaming, so are they dreaming this attack? But I mean, imagine a scenario where you have like a village of these.
No.
Yeah, that's
there wouldn't be a village left.
Wouldn't there? I mean, they're fine on their own. And then you throw a pack in there in a place now where reality is kind of shifting constantly because you're literally on the periphery, or they are all the time.
That's nuts. This is getting crazy.
And I think that there's so much potential there. And oops, because maybe now I'm screwing over CJ for not being able to do this because I'm going to talk about it a whole lot.
Fine.
Sorry. All right.
You're fine.
But like that idea that you wander into this little town, maybe 30 people, because you can get away with that shit back then, right? In that era. And they're all these waking sleepwalkers. And you don't fucking know. Right?
No, how are you supposed
to know?
Because
they seem normal. They're kind of weird, trippy, and they kind of shift a bit. They're odd. They're off.
Like they're on peyote.
Yeah, they're off a little bit. But all this
they shuffle around slightly, eyes are unfocused. But other than that, you can't really tell.
Right? But meanwhile, all this weird shit's going on in this town, and they don't seem to notice or react to it.
Yeah, to me, it's just like those guys are all on something. Peyote.
It's a weird comparison. But I mean, this reminds me of there was an old RPG for the Genesis called The Shining Force.
Never even heard of it.
Not surprised. I'm a huge fan of the franchise. Sadly, it's been long dead. But there is, in the first game, there's a point where you go to this abbey. Whatever story reason's fine. And the place is kind of fucked up. There's some kind of trippy music. It's a little ominous. And you talk to an NPC, and then they start to follow you. Like they'll say something like, "Oh, welcome to the Abbey."
Okay.
And you'll move on, and like you look back, and now they've moved. They're closer. And every NPC you talk to will say something innocuous.
Yeah, hey, welcome, and then it starts following you
like a lost dog.
Yeah, and then like you get to the main chapel, and by the time you get to the main chapel, you find out there's a character there that's been imprisoned or whatever. You find this like, what's this dude doing in chains in the middle of this church? And then you turn around and the whole fucking town's there behind you, blocking the way out of the building.
Oh.
And like, in that point, everyone was like a zombie, or, everyone was dead, and it was like an illusion thing. But you look at that, right? And you take that level of creepiness and you apply it to this thing, to this idea of this town. Like, I kind of love that.
Oh, it's nuts. And then the fucking tentacle thing.
Right, exactly. I mean, where the shoe drops in that scenario, I have no idea. That's up to you.
In that church at that point.
Well, right, but I mean, for this, possibly in the church, in this scenario, but that idea of them all seeming normal, but then like they know you're not supposed to be there, and that general eeriness / aloofness of them.
It just makes it really creepy.
Right?
Danny's shuddering.
Oh, yeah, I'm shuddering a little bit. That's nuts.
No. They're not always antagonistic.
That's true.
Sometimes they could be helpful. if you can figure out how to properly approach one, they can almost act like a dream oracle. Because they're in tune to the periphery. They're seeing stuff that you might not realize is going on.
It's like friendly Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on me.
Yeah,
that is shame on you.
Still made sense, though.
That's pretty good, though.
Yeah. There's no excuse for that joke, but I'm not sorry.
It's fine. It worked.
But you can do a lot with these spirits, or these Stormborn. They're not spirits. Exactly.
Yeah, they're their own thing. And
they're halves.
Which I think is really cool. That it's something new. And at the same time, you have your same old with threats from both the Weaver and the Worm. And I think a good example of those would be the Mind Eaters, which are corrupt Weaver spirits, which already it's fine.
I wonder if that's what they're referencing when the Storm Eater would, instead of eating and devouring that spirit, it would corrupt it.
I don't know if that's the case with this particular type of spirit, but these ones I think are neat. And the only reason I actually bring them up is because I loved the write-up about them.
Okay.
Is the quote is they're far more intimidating in the Umbra than in the physical world. In the Umbra, they resemble horse-sized arachnids with blackened hides and seeping wounds.
Horse-sized? Oh, my.
Yeah. Which is already rad as hell.
Yeah,
right? A little bit.
I don't like spiders.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to see one horse-sized.
But then when they materialize, their physical form is no bigger than a tick.
Ha.
And the Uktena theorize that a single Mind Eater might actually break up into a swarm when manifesting. So, like, as if when it manifests, there are thousands or even millions of these things in one place that scatter. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Mind Eater?
Mind Eater.
Yeah, I could see why they would think that. Yeah,
I just love that description both ways.
Yum.
That it's this horse-sized fucking spider monster. And it's still that spider monster. It just shrinks down to tick size. So you probably won't notice that it gets you.
Or there could be, a couple thousand of them when it materializes.
Right? They're just latched onto your body.
You can stop.
Crawling around, burrowing into the skin.
You thought I shuddered here a second ago. Fuck.
Sweet dreams, everybody.
Sorry, Melissa.
Well.
It happens.
And I got an example for the Worm, too, though. Which, these things I think are super cool. And I don't believe they've appeared anywhere else. So, hooray. And these are the Night Hunters.
All right, this is cool.
It got
a good name.
Yeah, right.
Starting good.
I mean, Mind Eater was cool, but it's like, ugh.
CJ, you know about these guys?
I know a little bit about them, and once again, I haven't started using them just yet. But these are one of the things that I might be toying around with ideas of how to make them just that much extra in experience for the players.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame you. These guys are bound into a small... We're using the word fetish, but not an actual... I mean, I guess technically, right? Because it's a spirit bound into. Technically, it's a fetish.
Sure.
But they possess the owner.
Oh, so the husk. Okay.
They started out as spirits of just powerful, ravenous fucking greed. And each one... was bound into like a small stone, like a talisman,
Like a bane tending kind of thing.
Well, whether or not it was it's unclear as to whether or not it was intentional or as a result. But it's these are in stones of like precious jewels or pure gold or something. It's something of worth, which is important.
Might find a few of these in the abyss.
Actually,
They're gold.
That's a good call.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, that's even better.
Or the silver, or that one silver road.
Gold.
Could be the silver, too.
Could be.
With that one path.
And there's plenty of precious gems in the abyss. That's even better.
Yeah.
Fucking, that's in our world. I'm
Shit.
taking that.
It's now in CJ's world.
Yeah, probably. But it's the thing, though, is so they're bound in these stones, these jewels or whatever. Now, they call out to people. So like these like talismans, if you will, right? This is the shit that's being thrown down for poker games. Or, pulled off someone in a knife fight or pulled out of a box in a bank, right? And what happens... Or it
could be the cause of one of those high noon duels.
Exactly.
Yep.
And once the dust settles, like, I mean, there could be riots over this shit. But once it settles, the body's cool. The guy left standing is the host. And they seem fine. By day, they are fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said they're spirits of greed.
Right.
So this is all makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like the One Ring. It's like my precious. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So, I mean, that's probably the best way to think of it. Right? Each one, it's like, I got the ring. It's mine. I get it. Okay. So by day, they're totally cool. Allegedly.
And this is the last one standing.
Right. This is the guy who the owner of the thing. It's Gollum at that point. Only without being all, Gollum, It's just regular Frodo man who happens to have the ring. At night, the Bane takes control.
Oh, shit.
Once the sun sets, the Night Hunter comes into the supernatural abilities. And, like, they'll use moon bridges to join together and hunt as a group seeking out Garu just to get revenge. And I guess it is because they were bound into the shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they get together at night.
Gone wrong.
Right. And now they're hunting the fucking Bane. I mean, all Garu, because they don't care.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. At that point, yeah.
So it's like... Yeah.
Well, that's a good way to tie that in. This is like the first steps of Bane tending, because, I mean, it's quite in the past.
Bane tending's been
that's
long
true.
before that.
Yeah.
But this is like the other end of it. This is what happens when you didn't do it right, or didn't do
when
it
we're working out the
enough
kinks
or whatever.
still, or
right.
something. Or this Bane was just too strong for what we were trying to do.
Right, in this type of them at that point. Get together, and again, I don't want to say they use moon bridges to join together and hunt Garu.
Yeah.
That's fucking cool.
Catches Garu on the moon bridges. Imagine that.
Too.
Battle on the moon bridge.
Oh, God, it'd be like a train heist, but in the Umbra on a moon bridge.
Fuck yeah.
Yep.
That's rad. Do that. CJ, do that.
Write it down now.
CJ's players, don't listen to this part.
No,
go back and forget this part.
Just don't listen to this episode at all.
No, listen to this episode twice, but just like plug your ears during this section.
Spoiler.
It doesn't help because we already talked about it, but it'll make us feel better.
Now,
just listen to it twice.
Neat little angle that I started to experiment with these guys was, they're hunters. Hunters in the Wild West, if you're going to get anywhere, you need a horse. And I was figuring, like, hey, maybe whenever they cross into the Umbra, they have their mount to hunt on. And this could be the quote-unquote origins to the old original trail song of Ghost Riders in the Sky, which Johnny Cash eventually did a cover of, or did his own version.
What if their totem was a horse?
Image.
I mean, that is neat imagery. Also, I thought he wrote that.
Yeah,
that's on me. But,
oops.
Yeah. Oh well.
Sorry.
I learned a thing.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's a song that's been around for a while, but
it has.
Just that image of like, here you are on this moon bridge, your pack going from sept to sept or whatever, and then you just have this whole posse of these night hunters riding up to meet you on that moon bridge, where you're supposed to be relatively safe.
Yeah, no, that's pretty great imagery.
That is
now,
great.
Speaking of horses, Danny was looking to know where. No, I'm kidding. That is obviously the primary mode of travel outside of the railroad.
Which one is weird, but like it's just gonna let it go.
Well, the railroad's still being completed at the time.
No, I'm talking about horses.
No. This is a real. We shouldn't just let that go. We shouldn't hand wave that. Because this goes in the next question. How the fuck does that work? In a world with primal rage where these horses should instinctually be fucking terrified.
Yeah.
Especially when you shift around
of a Garu.
Yeah. I mean, what makes that faster travel than you and Lupus?
Also a good point.
Well,
CJ?
you can get tired in Lupus.
This is fair.
But there is actually a gift that is in the Wild West book called Spirit Brand, which actually allows you to, in a sense, bond with whatever animal that you're using to ride, and it will allow it to more or less ignore your rage.
Okay.
See, it's important. And, like, it's too big of a thing to go just fucking run with it.
But I didn't know about this gift. Otherwise, how else are you supposed to do that?
Well, which begged the question, you know? I didn't know the
You're
answer
riding
when
your
we started
horse.
this.
You're
It's just
riding
there
your
had to be a
horse for 8
solution.
hours. Your horse gets tired. You shift to Krynos, pick up your horse, and keep running.
You could do that.
I mean, I guess you could. And I mean, yeah, there is lupus, but let's be practical. If we're out in the West.
Unless you're a strider.
Yeah, well, sure, you can get by, but I think the worthier part here is, in personally, I'm focusing more, again, on the West, because you could play in the era over in the East and be like in New York and be a fancy man if that's what you wanted to be. But that's not where the fun part is, I think. I think the appeal is,
wild.
Yeah, the appeal is
the Wild West, right. So imagine rolling into that town on foot, because you're not doing it in lupus.
That's true.
When you get close enough to town, you're going to have to switch out of those forms into a Hamid form. So you're going to be the guy walking up to town from the desert in Hamid. Like, I just walked. It's cool. Like, it's already impractical.
It's already people questioning you in that whole town going, huh?
Yeah, wait, the closest town other than us is like 300 miles away.
Exactly. Like, it wasn't like a 5-minute trip. You've been on the road a couple days, especially on foot.
Your telegram didn't even reach yet.
The telegram shows up at the same time. I'm coming.
Whoa.
Please cut that. Please cut that.
He's not. That's
Fuck.
going to be a
That's
sound
going to be
bite.
the drop at the end. You know that, right?
Damn it.
You did it.
I should have thought that one through first.
That's what he gets for opening his mouth.
Heyo. So yeah, no, I think it is important, and I appreciate. I mean, obviously they had to have a solution for it.
And the
I'm
core
happy
book
they
obviously,
did.
the core book obviously did write everything kind of right. Like everything has its own thing. Obviously, the horse, the fatigue, all that stuff, like spirits. Seems like every time we try to question something, there's an answer in that core book.
Good.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, this
is a very well written core book.
That's what we expect, at least. So that's nice. And so, I mean, I think, of course, obviously the Wild West has all this potential for all these different scenarios. I mean, obviously, you've got the idea of the Storm Eater and its minions, the Stormborn. You've got the Worm still going. You've got the Weaver, who isn't obviously the threat.
It's not the threat, but it's the
slowly gaining power.
Slowly gaining power.
Right.
Even look at the gauntlet itself, how thin it is.
In the dangers that, again, can come from the wild at that point.
Yeah.
And I mean, look,
still a serious threat here.
Absolutely.
Which is a fun change of pace, I think.
Yes, I agree. I was going that same direction. It's a different change of pace.
I've talked about how the Weaver isn't as much of a threat, but again, I think you got to remember that also is all relative, because for what we're used to, it's not a threat. But put yourself in that era where, again, we've got the telegrams and we've got the weapons evolving like they are. We've got the railroads coming up, sometimes ripping through cairns. You've got, the burgeoning oil and, all this other shit tearing into Gaia. These are new problems. Mm-hmm. These are problems that weren't there 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So guess what? The Weaver is still a problem in their perspective.
Correct.
Just, again, to us, it's like, oh, that's fucking nothing. Are you kidding? You barely have wheels. Try the internet, dickhole.
I was going to say, it's not a problem compared. But at the time,
your players don't, or your characters in that era don't have that comparison.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have the book.
Exactly. They didn't read the fucking Book of the Weaver. Shame on them.
It didn't exist yet.
The penumbra, too, is also different compared to modern time because of this difference in the Wild and the Weaver. Like, certain domains are more common and others are more rare. Like blights, they're not often seen. And if they are, it's usually because of the Storm Eater.
I was thinking that. It's got to be because of the Storm Eater, though.
Yep. Hellholes are also very rare, but may manifest near vile mining operations.
Ooh, that's That's a good point too. You know, I like the idea of maybe stuff down there.
Mm-hmm. Because you're digging, and
yeah,
you don't know what you're gonna unearth.
Exactly, that's great.
Wildings are extremely common, actually, because wild's so everywhere.
No, it makes sense.
And the storm eater actually tosses them about and even grows their influence like a wind-spreading fire. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, that's pretty great. And aside from those umbral dangers, because again, that's part of it. You know, the umbral.
I'm just thinking, like, it doesn't have to be dangerous. You can use it to your advantage.
Oh, sure.
Like again, how thin it is.
Yeah.
It's way easier to step sideways. You have the element of surprise. You'd be able to outflank your enemies like it was nothing.
Not a lot of spiritual resonance yet.
Right. You can even quick escapes. Hit the penumbra. Get out of here.
Well, sure, but again, sorry, go ahead, CJ.
Even in your biggest towns, the gauntlet rating is only ever at most 7.
Yeah, and it's only in the biggest towns.
But again, you got to remember your context.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge.
Yeah.
For that era.
For the era, right.
You know, when you're going out into the desert and the gauntlet's 1, a gauntlet 7 is ridiculous.
Yes, true.
Yep.
A gauntlet 5 is ridiculous.
Is there different roles, like, to get in through the gauntlet back then? Because 7 seems still kind of not too
it's
difficult.
The same role.
It's the same role? Oh, well, it still wouldn't be that difficult to step sideways.
But again...
You're looking at comparing with time
modern
frame,
day,
yeah, which is an unfair comparison. I mean, it's fair for us to say, but it's unfair in the context of the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about enemies. Back to that a second. I mean, we talk about, examples of Worm and Weaver, of course, and of course the wild stuff, the Stormborn. You also have tribal differences. Because remember what era we're in.
True.
So you still have the Wormcomers establishing and taking cairns territorial disputes because everyone's still forging that territory.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's expanding west.
The Ectena and the Wendigo were trying to defend that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that stuff too.
And the Second War of Rage isn't that far back at this point.
Oh,
yeah, so everyone's still kind of bitter.
Right?
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So there's a lot of shit going down from a historical context that you're right there in the thick of. It's not just Gaians versus the Worm. I mean, there's always the potential for nation infighting, even in a modern game.
Sure.
But it's there.
that
wound is still bleeding
right
in the Wild West era.
Mm-hmm. In the Wild West era, the Wendigo are at their strongest. They're in their most numerous and their strongest still. And they're actively giving it all they've got to keep their cairn safe, to push the Wormcomers out, preferably.
Yeah, not even back. The fuck out.
Yeah, like that boat you came on, I'm putting your ass back on it, Silverfang. That's the Wendigo's thought process.
This is my land.
Right.
Go back to your land.
And while we're on it, and I mean, I think I know the Wendigo, we all know them as paragons of calmness and peace and forgiveness. That's definitely how we know them in the modern era, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
I like how not only did you say it, but you were very calm when you said it.
Well, it's much like the Wendigo.
Right.
So
masters of their rage.
It is. It's very warm kind of people who love everyone equally. You have to keep in mind that although the Croton are still long gone,
well, not long, they're just gone.
That wound is much again.
Oh, it's still fresh.
Yes, it's still a very fresh wound.
It's still bleeding.
So they're probably going to be even more understanding and calm and forgiving than we're normally used to. And they definitely, I mean, they're not known as fierce warriors to begin with.
Oh, okay.
So I definitely wouldn't amplify that if I were running a game.
Food for thought.
Right. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And you also have the Uktana at this point, who are also in the same situation of the Wendigo. And the Uktana are known for all those secrets they keep. What's stopping them to use some of those?
Nothing.
Oh, God.
What's stopping them to find out your secrets?
Phew, even better. What's stopping them from, say, like leaking some information to some wormcomers so they would, like go claim some territory that would result in them accidentally freeing some sort of bane that the Ectenna would hope would wipe them out.
Oh, I could see that.
So they do it on
And
purpose.
who just happens to know how to bind that bane.
Exactly. See, exactly that. You just lead them into a trap. Here's your group of Iron Riders and your Geta Fenris and your Fianna, and they're teaming up to go take this territory because the stupid Pure Ones can't hold it themselves. And what happens? They release...
So the Pure Ones let that bane go on
right?
purpose.
They end up freeing Magomra, who kills all of them, ideally, so the Ectenna can just run back and bind them and, hey, look. Oops.
Your fault.
Some dead wormcomers, oh no.
Job well done. Didn't have to lift a finger.
Exactly.
That'd be super
And
smart.
there's not just the conflict from the Pure Ones and the Wormcomer sides. Wormcomers definitely got some issues that are being worked out in the Wild West.
Oh, sure.
Like, Shadow Lords were here first compared to the Silver Fangs, and there's a good number of them that put themselves in positions of authority. And now you have some Silver Fangs coming over expecting to be the one in charge. And they have no ancestral backing here.
I mean, that's a good point.
They're
But
one of
I'm
the
a
last
Silver
tribes to
Fang.
come over.
You're also at the height of the Geta Fenris pushing in, taking territory that you aren't strong enough to hold because I was able to take it. I mean, you laugh, but they're not wrong necessarily.
No, that's why I'm laughing, because it's not
like
wrong.
You are clearly not able to hold this, so now I'm taking it so someone can hold it and it won't fall to the worm. But what
I
is
actually
that?
have a quote in the book for the Geta Fenris that I love that just sums that up perfectly.
What you got?
Maybe the Umbra wouldn't be such a stack of flaming horseshit around here if you people had done your jobs right in the first place. Now shut the hell up and let us handle this.
Yeah, that's about it. You know what? I'll add to that. Is it dickish? Yeah. Are they wrong? Not necessarily.
Just doing their job.
Better than you.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's about doing that job. It's not about, oh, hey, new land, this is ours because we're the best. No, we're doing this to keep the worm from getting this shit.
Which is something that a lot of people misunderstand about the Geta Fenris in the first place.
Yes.
They like to attribute them to certain things, and that's silly and kind of on that, whatever. But yeah.
The Get are just forceful, but they get the job done.
Exactly. They care about winning the war for like everyone, shockingly. It's not about them first.
They're just the ones willing to make that first step.
Right. And the least likely / most likely to die defending the thing.
They like their blaze of glories.
Well,
Honor.
they know they're
There's
the best.
honor in it.
They know they're the best suited for it.
Right.
If I'm the biggest, strongest guy, I'm going to stand first in line. Am I going to die battling? I hope not, but probably. And I'm at peace with that because I'm dying for a greater good, for a greater cause. And that's the world not ending. So I'm on their side.
Let's defend our way.
I also don't want the world to end. It's crazy.
I like how you put that. And even back in the 1800s, it's still a thing.
Now, one of the other tribes that's in a interesting spot at the moment is the Fianna, in my mind. Because they're big on their families. So much so, maybe a few old blood feuds have come over to the Wild West, and now that there's none of those silly laws the kinfolk have to follow, and the Garu can get on this, they can settle old differences. Like, I'm seeing a Hatfield and McCoy style story right here between a couple of Fianna.
Which is super cool. While we're on it, how about Silver Fang houses that aren't in prominence over in the old country, and now they have a chance to be somebody in the new world?
Yeah, I can see that too.
Put that right in the middle of a Hatfield McCoy brawl, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, you got the rival family Fianna going at it, Now you got to be the Silver Fang to step up and tell them to get in line, or they're going to end up killing themselves.
That's awesome.
Or here's something fun. And this is coming out of my mouth. How about this pack of maybe even predominantly children of Gaia and Silver Fangs, right? That are holding a territory or trying to keep it together, doing their peace talks, trying to get the nation to be cool. And then an old family of Silver Fangs, an old house, some people in power in the old country come over.
And this is ours.
Yeah. And now, well, no, we're House Wormfo. Fuck you. This is all ours. Worm, just an example, just throwing it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And obviously they can't breathe poor people there because they're from the old country. But see, it ain't like that here in the new world.
Yep.
Even your child of Gaia has got grit and is a good enough shot to get through a day.
He said to make it this long.
Right? Mm-hmm. So suddenly, you've got that disconnect between that old country and the new country where, we got to stop him from taking over. You're on the side of the dirty, uncultured Western Garu. That Silver Fang who ain't seen a bath in a fortnight. Because that's just how the world is.
No, I get it. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah. And that's one of the fun conflicts to also potentially play on is the old world versus new world. For example, I've had an old world get who, one of the sept leaders in one of my players' septs, he's a Galliard who can't speak. His throat got cut with silver, managed to survive, but lost the vocal cords there. Instead, he's no longer in a position of authority, but this very old traditional get is like, what use is a Galliard that can't tell a story, that can't speak, sing?
And so he invented
anything.
Interpretive dance.
Ha.
More doing extra work with glyphs, but the get came in, met this guy, got that first impression, and immediately is citing that litany as a philodox as well. Suffer not thy people to tend thy sickness. Here's a Garu who's not doing anything. He's an elder, but he can't teach properly because he can't speak. What the fuck are you going to do with this guy here? Where some of the New World get is, you can't just be telling this guy to go off on a hike because we need our numbers. Got a lieutenant and Wendigo to worry about.
I like it.
I'm going to be honest. You worried me for a second with the pause when I brought up that interpretive dance thing.
I mean,
you had me for a second.
There is a whole thing with native tradition and telling stories through dances.
Yeah, but that's not what I was talking about, and you know it.
But yeah, I know.
I'm picturing that guy in like a black onesie, up on stage and twirling around. Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. But he's in Glabro.
That would be that would be an interesting image.
I hope I have just cemented that in all of your heads.
Even better.
Razrams.
Forgot about the spirit fingers.
It's called Umbra fingers. Excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
Something we haven't talked about though is the human threat.
Well, the Industrial Revolution.
Okay,
and
but I think we could do better.
I'm just saying, yeah, I see why, yeah.
Obviously we have a little someone, and I'm not looking at a timeline here, but they exist. A little so-and-so by the name of Jeremiah Lassiter. And his little company, Premium Oil, which is starting to be a thing. You've got, again, obviously, yes, the expansion aspect of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also still have secret societies, like the Enlightened Society of the Weeping Moon.
The hell is that?
Sounds cool.
It's a thing I'm going to tell you guys about.
Paint me a word picture.
I'm going to. This was a secret society, either actually or in conspiracy land or whatever. It popped up over the years, or whatever. But this secret society proclaims to work for the betterment of all its brothers and sisters, because it was a very forward-thinking movement in some chapters. The thing is, the members swear themselves to the greater glory of the worm.
Oh.
Yay, early wormish cults.
Mm-hmm.
Was not expecting worm.
That's weird. They do rituals that pay a misguided form of homage to Luna, who they think who they build their mythology around, and they consider her an aloof and unforgiving goddess, which frankly isn't. I mean,
it's not far off.
Yeah, we're not out of the ballpark there.
But they also prophesize that Luna will herself descend to Earth and wash away all flawed aspects of creation with her silvery tears.
And I love the silvery tears part.
Phoebe?
That like she's just gonna come down and just wipe out motherfuckers like Binding of Isaac style. Just shoot her fucking tears at people.
Well, with that description of it, that sounds like, yeah, that's not a terrible goal until you start thinking of it. This is a worm cult.
Right. So it's total bullshit. And
it's apocalypse they're looking for.
Right. The final revelation, and this is a little like Scientology, where like once you're, certain like shoulder deep into the bullshit, they tell you the truth. But this whole deal was crafted by the Urgeworm of Lies.
Now I can see why it's worm. There we go.
Yeah, so that's where their powers are granted from the Urge of Lies and the Defiler Worm itself. And these motherfuckers actually get a form of hedge magic.
Really?
Yeah, and they're a little bit everywhere. And I mean, obviously the levels of involvement and power vary wildly, but we're like a little like Fight Club at that point, where you're going to stroll into a town and like the barber happens to be a member of the Society of the Weeping Moon. I'm enlightened. And he might
find a rally of theirs.
Right, but that could lead you into a rally to, who knows what.
That's weird as shit.
You run into young old man miniskins.
Which you could how great of a story would that be? Teaming up with Laughing Miniskins, because he's not old man yet.
He's not old man yet. He's Laughing Miniskins.
He's trying to break into and learn about the Society of the Weeping Moon. So it's like a team up while you infiltrate.
That's awesome. That's kind of awesome, yeah.
Oh, I'm super fucking into that right now.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And the number of rage rolls you're going to have to get if you're a Garu trying to legitimately break into this in that case, because you're going to have all the stuff that you know about Luna, about the auspices, just being used by these guys, thanks to some information given to them by, possibly Black Spiral Dancers.
Shit. Or even
all of their members have an auspice of a type. I don't remember what their official name for it is.
For lack of a better term,
I think it's allspice.
Allspice.
Yeah.
There we go.
Something like that.
No, but I think these kind of societies are excellent. It's more to play with.
Oh, it adds flavor.
Yeah,
and you don't have to use the Society of the Weeping Moon necessarily. Because in this age, the Victorian age is going on, and that's the height of new interest in occultism and spiritual enlightenments. So these kind of organizations are popping up everywhere.
Well, and you got like Freemasons and
right,
and there's actual ones. So
yeah, and like who's to say that some of these aren't beneficial, and some of these are just misguided, and some of these are completely harmless. And I think that's something fun to play with too, because there's a section, I don't remember if it was the W20 companion or the original core book, but they talk about hunters, which to an extent have existed in every version of Werewolf the Apocalypse before the actual hunter, up to and including the actual hunter game.
Before the game, right.
Right. So we're talking about people who, that small, 0.8% of the human population who's immune to the delirium, who, I'm going to be a werewolf hunter, and that's cool. But something I love about those is that they're ultimately ineffectual and shouldn't be taken seriously. Because he's like a dude with a shotgun. But you can still do that. And the fact of the matter is they might be more of a credible threat in the Wild West era.
Did you have to worry so much about silver bullets?
Well, I think the folklore still stands.
But the folklore is still around, and there's a lot of folklore of things you got to kill with silver bullets. And
while we're on it, I wasn't around then, but I'm going to go on a limb and assume that that type of let's call it the folklore, these bullshit stories are probably way more widely believed.
Probably.
I think it's far easier to accept that there's a werewolf in the hills back then than like today.
Yeah.
That's
I
getting
can
laughed
see
off
it.
the stage today. But I think a lot of people would take stake in that kind of shit back then.
There's a Sasquatch over there.
Well, there's a lot less there to disprove.
Exactly. So that superstition, I think, is stronger, which makes it a thing.
And maybe the Society of the Weeping Moon spreading out that information and just playing on those superstitions even more. Maybe they sponsor a few hunter groups at some point.
Oh.
God, even, like a posse. Because old time, right?
Got to bring in the Wild
Time
West terms.
appropriate. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. It's time appropriate.
I think that's a thing to embrace. Have fun. Play, try it out. Do even...
Yeah.
Here's a thought. If you're playing a modern day game, do like a couple parter, 2-3 parter set back in the Wild West era. Maybe focus it around a past life of one of your players.
One of them, not all of them, because it's
just
ridiculous.
improbable that all 5 of them, like all of your grandfathers, were best friends. Right. But like one of them, and then have everyone else make, that it's that pack, and here's an adventure, and here's how this will tie back to the modern day even.
I can see that way going.
That's a great way to just dip your toe in the water and see if the setting's for you. But, embrace it, have fun with it, because you could have a lot of fun with it.
There's a lot of shit there. I like.
Well, there's not a lot holding you back.
Right. There's a lot, there's fewer constraints.
Mm-hmm. Get a lot more freedom with everything.
Yeah. A lot more you can play with, and I mean, you could even go nuts and maybe don't tell your players this, but have allow room for them to change history. Maybe they kill Jeremiah Lassiter and Pentex never becomes a thing.
Ooh.
Now, I'm not saying do a time travel game where that happens.
Right.
But I'm saying that maybe a lot for the fact that, the history of the meta plot isn't set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Stop Abraham Lincoln's assassination.
Or his birth.
Or his birth.
Or
wow, that would really mess
work
with
them
some
while
things.
you're hunting vampires.
There
Right?
you go.
There you go.
He is a vampire hunter.
Yeah. Or, maybe the Silver Fangs are pushed back to the old country.
Oh, and never come over to the new country.
Right. I mean, that's my point is you could do anything.
Right. There's a lot more freedom in it.
It's impressive how much information and extra stuff they've put into like just the setting alone to be able to do that. It's a brand new game at this point.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the more I looked into it, the more interested I was in it, the more fun that could be had.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I definitely endorse, tried it out. I know I want to at some point.
Because we'll stick with our famous saying.
Ring the bell.
Future of werewolf is in the past.
Yeah,
All right.
it's certainly true.
Fair.
But unfortunately, that's about the time we got for today. CJ, thank you for joining us.
It was a blast.
We'll get you back, yeah? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. It'd be a damn good time when we can do that.
All right. So this is not the last you'll heard from this man. So once again, thank you, CJ. So on behalf of everyone here at Scratch Wolf Studio, Tommy Dixon, Daniel Tyson, we want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Keep your claw sharp, your head in a swivel. We'll see you.
I'm coming.
Whoa.
Please cut that. Please cut that.
He's not. That's
Fuck.
going to be a
That's going to be
soundbite.
the drop at the end. You know that, right?
Damn it.